COVID-19 is both highly contagious, highly infectious, as well as being deadly. It may be 5 or 6 times as deadly as the flu. These are the steps that have to be taken before we get to a totally safe world. Number 1, we have to discover or develop a vaccine. And these are the number of months that each one of these steps will take, regardless of how fast we try to go, unless there's a miracle. 10 to 12 months to discover and develop a vaccine. Number 2, prove that vaccine to be safe, not lethal. We don't want it killing people 3-4 months after giving it to them. That will take 4 to 6 months. Number 3, produce billions of doses, more than one for every human being on the planet, due to some going bad, etc. That will take between how long and 12 months? I don't know. But it's not going to happen overnight. Number 4, vaccinate the entire country, the entire world. And that will take from I don't know how long to at least 6 months. In total, we are looking at, again, unless something miraculous happens, probably 2 full years from the outbreak's start in December of 2019. Now, please pay close attention to what I'm saying about breathing in the breath of infected versus uninfected people, indoors versus outdoors. Just today, April 3rd, 2020, there has been new discussion in the news about the fact that you can get the virus from the breath of someone else in a confined space. Of course you can. There are aerosol droplets in their breath that, if inhaled into your lungs, can make you sick. Here's a chart called The Hammer and the Dance that you might have seen before, but it's worth looking at again as it is really simple and clear. If we do absolutely nothing, the black line, everybody gets infected around the world. A lot of people survive, but a lot of people die. We're looking at probably around 4%. They're guessing between 2 and 6, depending on how many life-saving devices and equipment there is around. The red line is mitigation. If we just do a little bit, everybody still gets infected. The hammer means doing everything that we possibly can to reduce both the contagion and the lethality. Number 1 is social distancing. That really is social distancing. Some people are calling it physical distancing, which is not quite true. Of course, social distancing involves physical distancing. You don't want to get within 6 feet of anybody else who might have it, even though they're not showing it. But it is also most important that we suppress our natural human desire to be in crowds, to be in crowded shopping plazas, at sports events, parties, etc. It means that, as China has demonstrated, not just the infected people wear masks, but 100% have to wear masks. Now, we don't have enough masks to go around yet. They have to go to the healthcare workers, because if they all die from this disease, we're all going to die. The people in healthcare desperately need to wear N95 rated masks that filter out the virus. The rest of us should be wearing surgical masks at the very least. As my first PSA pointed out, surgical masks have no effect on uninfected people breathing air from infected people because it goes around the mask. The only purpose for a surgical mask is to stop infected people, especially asymptomatic people that aren't showing any symptoms, from spreading their droplets into the air and infecting all the other people around them. If everyone is wearing a surgical mask and the healthcare workers are wearing N95s, or potentially all of us wear N95s, we can get through the initial phase of rapid infection, rapid contagion fairly well. It's not a panacea, but we can do it. What has to be understood about the hammer is that the dance comes afterwards, and that is the ongoing infection of anybody who has not yet had the virus and hasn't had a vaccine. This goes on until either a vaccine is developed or absolutely everybody has had the virus, and those who have survived it have developed immunity. The reality is that this graph is a bit of a fantasy. Why? Because after the hammer comes down for the first 3 to 7 weeks, the ongoing risk of infection is extremely high until everybody has been infected and survived or has had a vaccine. This part is called the dance, where we are trying to mitigate wherever we can after the first huge bump of infection. But this little tiny bump they're showing here is probably unrealistic. The moment everybody goes back to behaving like normal or nearly like normal, a whole new batch of uninfected people is going to get infected. and everything starts all over again. Now, maybe we're all smarter and we've got masks and we don't allow it to get as high as happened the first time. But the reality is these reinfection bumps are going to be probably quite high repeatedly going forward. And unless we all behave appropriately, those bumps are going to continue until everybody has got the vaccine. To understand the threat of COVID-19, let's take a look at how few ways there are to actually catch the virus. Number one, if you inhale an infected person's invisible aerosol droplets in from a sneeze, a cough, or just from their breath in confined spaces, like on a bus, in a subway, in a stairwell, in an elevator, if they're not wearing a surgical mask and you're not wearing an N95 rated mask, just their breath can infect you. Number two, you rub your eye or your mouth or your nose after touching cardboard within 24 hours of contact with infected mucus or saliva from an infected person. So if the pizza man has coronavirus or the guy who's packing the box, you could get coronavirus just from touching that cardboard and then touching your mouth, your eye, or your nose. Number three, you rub your eye, mouth, or nose after touching any hard surface within 3 days of it being contaminated. So walking up a stairwell and grabbing the handrail, pushing the button in the elevator, etc. Number four, you touch fabric or pet's fur right after an infected person has done so. You go out for a walk, someone who's infected rubs their nose and then pets your dog, and then you pick up your dog. Other than those 4 ways, there is no other way to get COVID-19. There are a lot of panicked theories out there. You cannot get COVID-19 by breathing in the breath of an uninfected person. So crossing back and forth across the street or off the sidewalk to avoid every single person coming towards you is probably evidencing a little bit more care than is absolutely necessary. However, many infected people show 0 symptoms, so staying at least not even 6 feet away, but 9 feet or 3 meters away from people is probably a better idea. You cannot get COVID-19 by breathing in the breath of an infected person outdoors at a park or on a road or a beach at more than 10 feet away. It disperses and drops to the ground, as you can see if you watch the sneeze test video on YouTube by the Mythbusters. Is there some risk there will be sufficient concentration from someone simply walking down the street breathing that it will get into your lungs? Very, very unlikely. If nurses and doctors are wearing N95 rated new clean masks rather than reused ones as they're being forced to use right now, they are highly unlikely to contract it through the air. Mostly they're getting it when they take the mask off, touch the outside of it, and then touch their eyes or mouth or nose. You cannot get it by contact with sanitized surfaces. If you've cleaned everything that gets touched on a regular basis, you're not going to get COVID-19. And you cannot get it by eating cooked food that is delivered to you or any other fanciful way you dream up. Keep in mind, with anything that gets delivered to you, whether it's groceries or anything else, you should be sanitizing everything that comes through your front door. Now, the scary part is, and it's sad to say, but it's true, what we don't know can hurt us. Right now, it is not yet clear how long asymptomatic carriers remain contagious once they contract the virus. So all these people that are walking around that are carriers and not showing symptoms, do they carry it around for 3 months? Highly unlikely. It probably passes through them the same speed it goes through anybody who contracts it and does show symptoms, but we just don't know at this moment. Number two, from testing, it appears that recovered people are no longer infectious after 48 hours. But maybe they're picking it up from people they've infected in their house, and so they're passing it on through their hands. Not clear at this moment. Number three, and this is something that is super important that we all wrap our heads around, and this is why we all have to start wearing masks. Both surgical masks for absolutely everyone who goes out, just in case they have contracted it and they're carriers, but also N95 masks for everyone in healthcare. Each of us, as we all know now, must quarantine for 14 days after being exposed. That's the reason why everyone coming into a country from out of the country has to go into self-quarantine for 14 days. But think about this. You have to go into self-quarantine for 14 days after every single time you have contact with anyone outside your uninfected house. Anytime you leave the house to go shopping, to go get gasoline, to go to the liquor store, to go drop something off for someone. When you come back, you not only have to disinfect everything you're bringing into the house, including yourself, and everything that you've touched moving from your car into the house, you have to go back into quarantine for 14 days because you don't know if you're touching stuff that was contaminated and you touched your eyes, your nose, your mouth, or you came into contact with someone who was a carrier and breathed on you, and you inhaled their aerosol particles out of their breath, or coughing or sneezing. What this means, sadly, is permanent isolation for at least a year from now until a miracle happens and they both find or develop a vaccine, produce it, and distribute it to everybody in the country so that we all have immunity to the virus. So folks, it's sad but true that we are looking at a very long period of confining ourselves. No matter whether you're young and impulsive or old and impulsive, or struggle to understand that things that are annoying are not always easily solved just by ignoring them or trying to push past them. Try to wrap your heads around the fact that this is here to stay for a very long time, and our lives are going to be radically changed. Many of us are hardwired not to like change and to resist it at all times. That's what climate deniers are all about. However, in this particular case, we got to try and get a grip and understand that humankind had a pretty good run of it for a few thousand years. Mother Nature has found a way to wrap our species on the knuckles for having overpopulated the planet and found ways to very rapidly travel around the globe in great numbers. What we're really good at is helping each other and doing the right thing. And this next year or two is a time when we are going to all be called upon to listen to the angels of our better natures. I hope to see you on the other side of the camera soon. I've got fascinating new videos coming out, and there's a whole bunch of them on my Just One Cynic's Opinion channel on YouTube already. Thanks for watching.